Welcome to Road 1305, a distro for every use case. My name is Chris Wayne. I'm the Director of Engineering here at SUSE for Kubernetes distributions. I'd like to talk to you a little bit today about K3s and RKE2, when to use each distribution, what the use cases are for them, and then talk over a little bit about some of the recent changes that we've made and some of the upcoming changes and roadmap items for both K3s and RKE2. Uh, First, a little bit about the SUSE Kubernetes distro team. Obviously, we're maintaining Kubernetes distros from anybody from the edge to the data center. For anybody that's not familiar with Kubernetes and how their releases work, every month there's a new patch release for all of the what are considered live minor versions. So that'll be 3 to 4 of the latest minor versions get a patch release every month. And then there are 3 new minors that are introduced uh, per year. So what we try to do is we try to make sure that we get our patch releases out within 1 week of upstream and new minor versions out within 30 days of upstream. And the reason for that delay is largely validation and making sure that we're testing all of our distros, all of our minors, all of our patches on all of our uh, covered covered environments in our support matrix. So we care deeply about quality. We're always talking about how we can do better in terms of releases, how we can make sure that we're catching regressions before users do. We're constantly adding tests and automation around the process itself, as well as the actual projects. So we do try to take an approach of continuous improvement and make sure that we learn from any mistakes or regressions that we do make, whether that's by adding a new end-to-end test to make sure that it doesn't regress in the future, or retooling how we're testing something. We're always looking to get improved wherever we can. One of the things that's a little interesting about our team is that we need to really find that balance between the community and the customers. So K3s, as we'll go over in a little bit, is a CNCF project. So Rancher actually donated it to the CNCF in 2020. So that is very, very largely community based. And then RKE2 is very much customer focused, enterprise focused. So it's sometimes a little tricky to find that balance of making sure that the community gets what they need and our customers get what they need as well. And then, of course, we always are looking to innovate, whether that's by adding new features or new projects or just different ways to do things. All right. So I'd like to start with a kind of an overview of K3s and RK2. What are they? How are they different? And when to use each one. So there's 2 approaches to Kubernetes. Obviously, we have K3s and we have RK2. RK2 is really our enterprise grade, secure, configurable Kubernetes distro. RK2 is much more closely aligned with upstream Kubernetes and how it's built and how it's used. It is FIPS 140-2 compliant, meaning we build against a certified SSL, which is boring SSL via Go Boring. It does actually have Windows support. So if anybody needs to run Windows workloads, then obviously RK2 is the way to go. And like I said, it's a lot more configurable, which makes it a lot closer to upstream Kubernetes. Now, K3s is lighter. It's a lot more opinionated. It's easy to use. It's quick to get set up. It's really, it's an introductory Kubernetes distro that anybody can use. You can use it in your CI systems. You can use it just to spin up a cluster to run some tests. It's very lightweight, it's very quick, and it's very easy. All right, let's start with K3s. It's lightweight and it's opinionated. It's perfect for the edge, IoT, or your CI systems. And what do we mean by opinionated? We mean that K3s has a very clearly defined set of defaults and components, and we try not to budge from those. And that is, we reevaluate those defaults constantly to make sure that we're always providing the best possible distribution for our users. So what actually makes up K3s? So obviously we're using containerd as our container runtime rather than Docker. For a CNI, we use Flannel, which we also help maintain upstream as well. So, we can technically you can use another CNI for K3s, but from an officially supported perspective, it's flannel. So there's a lot of things in K3s that can work, but are not part of the product and are not considered supported. Kine is not etcd. So that's one of the big differences between K3s and upstream Kubernetes or RKE2. So K3s uses Kine, which is a project that we've developed here that acts as a data store shim to allow us to use SQLite as our default backend. We also have support for Postgres, MySQL, and Nats Jetstream as a data store. You can use etcd, but Kine is the default and makes it a lot more self-contained. For Ingress, we use Traffic, which we're engaged with upstream as well, helping make sure that that is always the easiest way for us to go. And let's talk a little bit about the benefits of K3s. The obvious one is that it's lightweight and that it's easy to use. So it is a single binary that runs in a single process. It's much, much lower memory footprint because of that. It is extremely easy to install and run. It's just a simple bash script that can install the latest version. It can install a given version. It can install from a commit if you want to test K3s itself. But regardless, it makes it extremely simple to install and run, which is why it's perfect for edge devices, CI systems, and stuff like that. It is pretty much self-contained. It has everything that you need bundled in with it. The only real dependency is a kernel that's not ancient and a Linux system. And like I said before, it is extremely opinionated. It does choose the easiest defaults that give the best user experience that we possibly can give. All right, so when should you use K3s? So I know I've been saying this a lot, but K3s is perfect in the IoT space. It's perfect in CI systems. We see a lot of people running Raspberry Pis with K3s. It does have ARM support, ARM64. So if you need to spin up a cluster and you want to test something out, K3s is perfect. If you have a smart device inside of a bus and you need the Kubernetes to run to capture metrics from it, K3s is absolutely perfect for that. So it's great for low power environments, embedded devices, single node deployments, spinning up a cluster to test anything, and really anytime that you need Kubernetes quickly and you're not too fussy about the details. You just want a Kubernetes cluster up. Right. RKE2. RKE2 is basically our enterprise-ready, enterprise-grade Kubernetes distro. It's secure, it's configurable, it is perfect for security-focused and enterprise workloads. As for what makes up RKE2, again, it's containerd as a container runtime. It uses Canal, which is Calico plus Flannel, as a default CNI. We do support, and SUSE will support Calico, Cilium, and Multus as well for CNIs. Unlike K3s, RK2 does use etcd by default, and therefore is a lot more closely aligned to an upstream Kubernetes cluster. And for Ingress, we're using Ingress and Nginx, but it is changeable and configurable. Okay, so what are the benefits of RK2? The very clear, obvious one here is security. All of the images used in RK2 are hardened. They're built against boring SSL and Go Boring, which is FIPS compliant. We have ready-made CIS profiles to make sure that your cluster can pass CIS benchmark scan, and we do keep up to date with upstream and make sure that we are, allowing all of these clusters to have the correct defaults to be able to pass these benchmarks. It also does come with SE Linux profiles as well. So with FIPS compliant binaries, SE Linux profiles, and knowing that it's passing CIS benchmarks, it's definitely the secure by default Kubernetes. It does actually still inherit a lot of the K3s deployment model, so it is quite easy to use. It is also a single binary. And but it is actually available as an RPM as well, especially if you're using it with SE Linux profiles. There's an RKE2 SE Linux RPM that will bring those in for you. As for CNI support, like I said, it supports a much wider array of CNIs with Calico, Canal, Cilium, and Multis. And it is a lot more closely aligned with upstream Kubernetes in terms of how it's administered, how it's run. So anybody that has used an upstream Kubernetes distribution and wants something that's just a little bit more secure, RKE2 is absolutely perfect for that. Okay, so when should you use RKE2? Basically, anytime you deploy Kubernetes in any kind of enterprise environment. So large deployments, anything that needs to be secure. So federal environments, it's perfect for. We see a lot of this run in kind of more government centric kind of workloads. Anytime you need advanced features like SRIOV or multi support, RK2 is perfect. Anytime that you need to have Windows agents, if you need more observability or auditability to make sure that everything is going the way that it's supposed to, and you need to audit logs to ensure compliance for anything, then RK2 is perfect. One of our big wins actually is that we have STIG certification for RKE2 as well, which is a huge deal when you're talking about federal government use cases. We see a lot of RK2 usage in telco environments as well. So basically, anything that's not a small edge deployment, RK2 is definitely the way to go. All right, so what's new and then what's next? I'd like to talk just a little bit about some of the new features that we've been adding in the last few months, and then talk a little bit more about what we're looking to add in the near, medium, and far off future. All right, so what are some recent additions to K3s and RK2? A big one that was asked for quite a bit is custom CA certificate and cert rotation support. So that's landed in the last few months and is now considered GA. Another big one is kubeadm style bootstrap tokens. So we've added a RK2 token and K3s token command that's quite similar to what you would see upstream to help ensure that you can create and delete these bootstrap tokens much more easily and much more closely aligned to how it's done upstream. We have recently enabled Kubernetes 1.27, obviously within 30 days, like I mentioned before. And one pretty exciting one here is we are in the process of releasing our first RK2 ARM64 build. So one thing to note here is whenever we add a major feature or enable a new architecture or anything like that, when we first land it and first release it, we consider it experimental until we make sure that we have the best possible experience for our users and customers. And so for the first few releases that a new feature is out, it will be considered experimental. And that is the case for RK2 ARM64 support. Currently, it is for 127 and up. So we have not yet backported, and we're not clear if we will unless we get enough ask for it. I know it sounds a little odd that we're talking about having K3s run on anything edge and anything small, and now we're talking about RK2 on ARM. But obviously, as most of you will know, there are ARM deployments that are not on the edge, right? There are large ARM servers that are in the enterprise, and we need to make sure that we have RK2 support for those. So that is something that we're actually very excited about that has landed in the June releases, which are currently going through validation right now. Another exciting one that we're extremely excited about is K3s and Tailscale integration. So we actually bundled in VPN support to K3s to make sure that you can have different K3s agents on different clouds and have them talk together. So we're actually extremely excited to have that Tailscale integration bundled into the June releases of K3s, and we're excited to see where that goes. This is kind of an evergreen statement, but we're always adding new end-to-end integration tests, and I like to call that out because it is something that we genuinely take seriously here. We consider that a feature to make sure that we're not causing any regressions and we're not, degrading any performance for any given release. So, for example, the K3s and Tailscale integration, we could not land that in the code base until we had an end-to-end test with it. So we're really keenly focused on that. The K3s binary size decreased with 127. That's largely being able to pull container D back into the multi-call binary. I had to be separated out with 126, but we were able to get it back in, which caused the K3s binary size to decrease a little bit. We also have removed some unnecessary and unused components to help with that as well. We have now been able to consider SRIOV support, GA, and RKE2. I wrote standalone here, but it's also considered supported in Rancher Manager as well. And then another really cool one is NATS Jetstream embedded support in K3s. So we actually got this from the nats.io folks. So it's a great example of two CNCF projects coming together and trying to make something really great for the edge. In RKE2, we've recently landed CSI snapshot support. And then another one that's been asked for quite a bit is we actually have repo authentication for the Helm controller within K3s. And then the last one, we are now building K3s root with 64K page size. And the reason for this is that allows K3s to actually run on Mac M1 and M2 devices running Asahi Linux. So it's not officially supported, but it does work. And we actually, again, got that from the community. So thank you very much for that. Okay, so what's next? What's coming soon? So something that we're extraordinarily excited about is we will actually have Windows Worker agent support. We are working with Microsoft on that. They are actually upstreaming some changes that they have made for AKS Edge Essential and their Edge Kubernetes. So we've been working very closely with them on that and making sure that we can get this into K3s and actually be able to support it down the line. We have been working on adding support for some of our new OSs. So Sleeve 15 SP5 will be supported. Sleeve Micro 5.4 will be supported. Another very common ask and something that we need to do for a secure Kubernetes is being able to rotate the server token. So currently you cannot do that, but we are adding that hopefully in the next few releases. So that will allow us to, rotate the server token on a regular basis to make sure that it never gets compromised. We do still suggest if it does get compromised that you should spin up a new cluster, but this does allow you to rotate it on a given basis. And then another thing that we're actually quite excited about is non-disruptive secrets encryption rotation. So secrets encryption rotation is in, it's working, it's been working, but it does require restarting the Cube API server quite a few times. So starting with 127, we're able to do that without actually restarting anything, which will make things quite a bit simpler and quicker. As for the medium term, obviously we'll be getting Kubernetes 1.28 support out within 30 days of 128.0 being released upstream. We are going to make sure that we get NVIDIA GPU support in a state where we can call it generally available. So for this one, we do have support today if you have the NVIDIA container runtime. We do need to make sure that we further validate it, automate the tests around it, obviously. And then there are a few small changes that we want to make in terms of polish and making the user experience great. So that should be coming soon. Another thing that we have been getting asked quite a bit about is a standalone Terraform module for deploying RKE2 clusters. We do have Terraform modules here today, but they're largely for Rancher Manager itself, and then a Rancher Manager provisioned RKE2 cluster. But we are going to have a standalone Terraform module for RKE2 itself. And then again, furthering the security discussion, we're going to be making sure that we have SBOMs and signed artifacts for Rancher Prime customers for RKE2. And for the long term, we would love to get K3s into a CNCF incubating stage. We are currently a CNCF sandbox project. We feel that we meet uh, all of the requirements to graduate to an incubating project. So we need to write up that proposal and work with the CNCF to get that through. Uh, we don't have a time frame in mind yet, but we are currently working on it. And again, this kind of goes to our commitment to the community and to the CNCF for K3s specifically. Another thing that has been asked for quite a bit, and I know people are a little bit excited about, we will have FIPS 140-3 compliance for RKE2. We do not have a time frame that we can promise on this, largely because of how FIPS compliance and certification works. So we are set from our end. We have submitted. We are at the mercy of NIST at this stage. So we cannot really say, oh, we'll have 140-3 certification at any prescribed timeline. We get it when they do the validation. But that is in progress, and that's something that we're really keeping an eye on. And then yet again, towards the secure supply chain and secure Kubernetes bit, we will have SALSA level 3 compliance for prime customers for RKE2. All right. We would love to hear from you. The team is very, very active on GitHub and on Slack. If you have any questions, if you have any issues, if you have any, feature requests or ideas, we would love to hear from you on the Rancher user Slack or on GitHub. If you built something cool with K3s, we'd love for you to show it off in the GitHub discussions. Like I said, we spend quite a bit of time making sure that we're actually engaging with our end users, especially around K3s, but also around RKE2. So we are always open for feedback. We're open for any kind of discussion around how you're using it or how you should use it or how you would like to use it. So please don't hesitate to reach out. All right. Well, that's all I have. Thank you so much for listening, and hope you enjoy SUSECon.